And it turns out that that house had a squatter in it. And I asked somebody that was helping us there, I said, hey, can you tell the squatter we'll give him like $500 just to leave? And the squatter was like, yeah, give me $2,500, 30 days to vacate, and I'll think about leaving. It was almost like he was in charge.
Welcome to the Freedom Point Real Estate Podcast, where we talk about creating more time freedom through passive real estate investing. Passive investing in real estate challenges conventional investment wisdom. We are passionate about learning and sharing resources with others who are ready to transform their investing mindset. Quick disclaimer as always, I am not a CPA, I am not an attorney or a financial advisor. This is not financial advice, not telling you or anyone else what to do. The views and opinions expressed in these podcasts are provided for education and informational purposes only and are not necessarily the views of my employer. I'm glad you're here. Now let's dig in. All right, welcome back, Freedom Point Podcast listeners. Thank you again for jumping into another episode of the Freedom Point. I'm so glad you're here with us today. I've got another amazing guest with me, Nathan Payne. Nathan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on here. I'm excited to dive in.
Yeah, I am too. Just excited to just chop it up with you a little bit. To give my listening audience a little bit of a background on Nathan. So Nathan decided to learn by taking massive imperfect action. Does that sound familiar? And by failing his way forward. Sounds a little bit like myself with my undiagnosed ADHD as a child.
That's it.
So now kind of fast forward 5 years now. Through learning through failures and tribulations. Nathan's now the co-owner of Offer on Homes, his real estate investing company, and Investor Thrive, which is a coaching company dedicated to helping real estate investors acquire more real estate the painless way. So Nathan, I kind of, jabbed at you there a little bit about kind of failing forward and making mistakes and kind of imperfect action. I am very much cut from the exact same cloth as you. I don't know what analysis paralysis is. I just know that I'm going to make a mistake and I'm going to clean it up later. So since you resonate with me on that a little bit more than maybe most of our listening audience, maybe you can kind of unpack that, let us know a little bit more about kind of your journey and what you're really focused on today as well.
Yeah, no, I'll unpack that. So I actually had a good experience with this today. So I have a business partner that I work with in my company right now, and like we're two opposites, right? Like for me, if I see something, I want to implement it immediately. Like I don't need to test it, I don't need to think about it. I'm just gonna go and do it. And he's more of like, let's think about it, let's test it a little bit before we go live and launch it. And so it's good to have those two different dynamics because like the issue with going ahead with me, like just going and doing it without even testing, is sometimes you can make mistakes that you don't need to. But in the other side, if you just wait and you just sit there and you analyze, then you could just be sitting on the sidelines forever. So it's good to have those two different dynamics. And working with him has been good because I've made what I do better, right? Instead of just like putting out as much as I can. And um I would say quality over quantity. Quality is so important, but you also need quantity in the beginning. So it's a give and take, give and take. But that's been my life, ever since I started anything. Is look, I might not be that good at it, but I can get good with time, and that's just like what I do with everything.
Yeah. And sometimes, it's just about putting in the reps, right? And kind of learning, what to do, what not to do. But, that's really where the learning happens and the growth happens is when we, attempt to do the thing or just start putting, as I like to say, one foot in front of the other. I know I know you're an entrepreneur at heart, and, you emphasize the importance of having, a clear purpose and value alignment when starting a business. So how can entrepreneurs really discover, and stay true to what their why is?
For me, I've studied a lot about this and a lot about vision and planning and going towards what you want, because I really do believe if you have a clear idea of what you want, you can get it. Like I just moved. We were talking about I just moved to Canada, and this wasn't something that I just decided like yesterday or like a couple days ago. This is something I wanted for a while. Where me and my wife were talking about having, living on a farm, raising our child in an area that was a little bit more rural versus like in the city where she's can see a lot of I would say a lot of, this isn't true for every city. It's just like in where we were living, a lot of people wanted the expensive things. They just put a lot of value on material things, and we didn't want to raise our child there. So we decided that we want to live in an area that's not like that, and that's why we moved out to the country here in Canada, bought a farm. And how's that all possible? It's because I was clear and intentional about what I wanted in my life. And if you really don't know what you want, it's going to be hard to get it. So that's why I focus when I talk to people about their business goals. It's like, look, it might sound nice to have a company that does 4 or 5 transactions, wholesale deals a day, or it might sound really nice to have that big business that you think you want, but you don't. Not everybody wants that. So you have to get really intentional on what you want, and then you can go get it.
Yeah, it makes total sense to me, identifying and have clarity over your why and then, really reverse engineering, what the different steps are that you need to take to get there. But sometimes taking those steps really requires, a mentor, a coach, somebody that can breathe life into you. So I'd like to talk a little bit more now about kind of scaling. You've helped numerous businesses scale. What are the key challenges businesses face when scaling, and how can they navigate those challenges more effectively?
And scaling, that's a tough thing, right? Because you can't, if you scale something that already has holes in it, then you're just going to create more and more problems, right? So we try to identify what are the issues they're facing now. Let's try and solve those and then grow versus let's just grow with the business that you have that's not working or has problems and you'll get more. So I think to answer your question, it's just let's identify what's working now and what we can improve and then grow versus let's just grow what you already have. That's what I try to focus on. And a lot of that comes back to vision, mission, what you really want in life. Again, because you don't want to scale someone's business if they don't even like it. If they're not even enjoying what they do.
Yeah, you definitely got to be passionate about it, especially if you're a small business entrepreneur or looking to scale up, your business. But I appreciate you clarifying, that in order to scale, it's not always just about finding a way to scale. It's really identifying, what some of those challenges are internally with respect to operations, people, et cetera, and then kind of dealing with those challenges before you start putting, those building blocks on top of each other, going forward. I also know that you've got a deep experience in kind of digital marketing, right, and brand strategy. What are the most important components of successful marketing, in today's fast-paced digital world?
I keep on hearing this a lot as I do more research is like trust, right? Like it's not like back in the day where you could just put out maybe a couple videos and people would just trust that you know what you're talking about. When but today's digital strategy, you have to almost have an omnipresent like marketing strategy where you're not just like good at one thing, like good on one platform, but you're kind of like present on all of them, and that you're consistent with your content, so people know that you're not just a fly by night guy that's trying to do a cash grab, make some money, and then you're gone. You want to show people, hey, this is what I do. I'm consistent. So to answer that, I would say like consistency, and then building that trust by showing people that like who you are and that you're real.
Yeah, so you're talking about like being genuine, being authentic. Let's put that into kind of, layman's terms for your, traditional small business owner that maybe doesn't even have a brand strategy, or, maybe they have one, but the strategy is not working for them, right? What would be kind of some of those, things that entrepreneur can really do to maybe hit the reset button, or maybe, look to enhance their overall brand strategy? Is it a consistency thing? Is it a leveling up their own game thing? Is it utilizing AI tools and technologies? What is it?
So for me, if someone was at the very beginning, bottom level, they didn't have like a brand presence or anything, I would say like you need to start getting your content out, or like not content necessarily, but like get what you do out in front of people. Like a lot of people want to start with ads, and ads okay, but that can get you in trouble if like you just start spending money on advertisement to build your business. So I would just get consistent with putting out what you do through doing a quick video, letting people know, and then being consistent with that. You can generate a lot of revenue just organically these days by just letting your circle know what you do with content, right? Or like social media. That's where we generate all the revenue for our business when it comes to the coaching. Now, when it's like even for if you want to buy real estate, same thing. Like let people know what you do. Hey, I'm buying houses. I'm trying to flip houses in the area. Who do you know, or are you selling? So consistency, I would say, and just being targeted with your messaging and letting people know like exactly the problem you solve. That's what I would do for a new business owner. And it is a difficult thing, right? Because if you're not good at social media, if you're not good at putting your message out there, you might not feel confident. But that's seems to be what the landscape of business is right now. It's just letting people know what you do consistently.
What are some practical ways that we can leverage AI when it comes to enhancing our overall brand and brand strategy?
Man, AI is incredible. I cannot believe what it can do. If you haven't checked out AI, Chat GPT, there's Gemini, there's all these different ones coming out now. But you can basically ask Chat GPT, say, give me a marketing strategy for the next 90 days that I can implement. And it will give you, and you can just refine it and ask it. But I use Chat GPT all the time to help me literally with anything. Now, obviously, you have to be genuine in the sense like you have to create the content or you have to go out there and tell people what you do, but you can leverage uh, its copy abilities, the ability to know what to say, and then the way you deliver it, kind of like how we're having this podcast. Like, why do people still listen to podcasts if they can get the information just because they can hear the experience is, what it's really like from real people versus just reading it. But yeah, I would say um, all that was a lot, right? But I would say that was it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I know that you interact with a lot of entrepreneurs and have those discussions, with them. I see one challenge in the entrepreneurship arena today, which is an ongoing, problem and has been, for centuries upon centuries. And that is a lot of times the business is running them versus them running the business, right? So it's this concept of balancing your why with profits, right? So what types of advice would you encourage business owners to make to maintain a proper I'll call it work life balance?
Work life balance is a tough one, right? Like people want balance, they strive for balance in their lives, but I would say balance almost doesn't exist, right? Like you have to be present where you are in the moment, and it's very difficult to like let me balance work and life. Like I would say for me, it hasn't been really a balance. It's been just what's my priority. Like my priority is my family and God, and work is like last. It used to be first when I first started. I was like, oh, I got to focus on making money and work and just growing. And then my wife, after years, is just like, quit working so much. I don't care about money. Like obviously we need to make them, provide for the family, right? But like I think the amount of work that I think I need to do in order to have the life that we want, like, is a lot more than what she thinks. So I think it's just been realizing um what's most important, and nobody really in the end is going to care about your business. It's good to work. I'm not saying that's not good to work, but focus on priorities, like what's actually important, and the business will take care of itself. If you love and care for your family, you're going to work, and you're not going to be on Facebook and social media and doing a bunch of stuff that's wasting your time when you know your family's depending on you. That would be my thing. Just focus on what's most important. Everything works out.
Yeah, it makes sense. And thank you for sharing that, Nathan. I'd really like to now talk about kind of the elephant in the room that I brought up earlier when we first got started. And that is the lessons that you learned through failures. In your journey, you've likely witnessed, you haven't told us what they are yet, but you've likely witnessed or experienced some setbacks. So can you share a story of failure and the key lessons maybe that you learned from it?
I got more failures than I could ever imagine telling like it'd take forever to tell about all my failures. Um, You know what? It's funny because like I don't really remember too many of my failures because I feel like they always turn into like a lesson that I needed to learn. There's not really many failures where I'm like, ah man, I didn't really need to learn that one. I could have just, maybe there are some, but I can't remember. So I'll give you some like trials or some things that were tough to go through. I bought a house in California. This was like 2 years in. I bought a house in California because we were going to wholesale it. And if people don't know what wholesaling is, it's when you get a house under contract and you sell your rights to buy that property for a fee. So you never own it. You just assign it to a buyer for a fee. So we were going to assign it to a guy for like $25,000. And the day of closing, he backs out. And I was like, well, this is a good deal. Let me just buy it with my own money. So we bought this house, and it turns out that that house had a squatter in it, and we didn't really know. So we were trying to sell it to someone else after I owned it, and everyone was like, "I'm not dealing with that house. You got a squatter inside." And apparently, California is really tight on squatters' rights, which I didn't know was a thing at all either at that point. So I'm like, "What?" nobody wanted to buy it unless the squatter was gone. So I was like, I talked to this, I asked somebody that was helping us there. I said, hey, can you tell the squatter we'll give him like $500 just to leave? And the squatter was like, yeah, give me $2,500, 30 days to vacate, and I'll think about leaving. It was almost like he was in charge, and I was like, no, that's not how it works here. I own this house, so I flew out and I kicked him out of his of the place. I was like, hey, I own this. You need to get out. So he ends up calling the cops on me. I'm with my business partner at the time. The cops are there. I'm like, what is going on? Like, how's this guy trying to call the cops on me? He lives in a house he doesn't own. So anyway, you could say that was a trial. I wouldn't say it's a mistake. It's just I was uninformed about how California and their however they do things there. But anyway, we eventually got him out. But now knowing what I know now, I'm gonna verify if there's a squatter in a house before I buy it in California. So things like that's like, was that annoying that I had to deal with that? Did that cost me money and time? Yeah, but what are you gonna do? I didn't know.
And you learned your way through the process. And I'd like to take this time, maybe to unpack a little bit more about, what you're doing in the real estate investing world and specifically related to wholesaling.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I do is I teach people how to get into their first or next deal in real estate investing and eventually help them grow up to getting 2 to 3 deals a month consistently. And that's what I focus on. Now, there's so many different ways to get into real estate, but that's how I got my start. I didn't have any money when I first got started. I started with $0 and I've grown to doing millions of dollars in transactions. And it's just all through trial and error and failing. But because of the group that I have and the apprenticeship that I run, people don't have to fail as much as I did. That's why I call it painless flipping, because it's like, let me take away a lot of the pain. Now, will it ever be painless? No, unfortunately not. You got to learn through, through the fire and the trial and affliction, and all that stuff you got to go through. But at least someone can help you out. So that's what I do is I help people learn quicker.
I'm Zach Captenstall, CEO and co-founder of Rise 48 Equity. Our goal is to help you protect and grow your wealth by investing in large multifamily apartment buildings. We do all the work as far as sourcing these large apartment buildings from the brokers, doing all of the on-site management with our vertically integrated property management company, doing all the renovations with our vertically integrated construction company. We completely rebrand the exteriors. We will renovate the interiors to our full platinum level scope, which increases the value of the asset to get that profit margin for the investor. If you'd like to learn about how you can partner with us on these exciting opportunities, and go to our website and set up a call with our team.
And how exactly do you do that? Is that through a one-on-one coaching session with folks? Do you point people to a specific website if they want to learn more about transacting real estate through a wholesale model?
Yeah, so I have a free Facebook group where people can go, because not a lot of people want to like join immediately an apprenticeship and like dedicate their time and energy into that. So I give them a free Facebook group called Payneless Flipping Wholesaling Real Estate Simplified. That's like you just type that in on Facebook and you'll get like a 90-day course. We do live training every week. Now, if someone's like, look, I want a little bit more hands-on attention, then we have an apprenticeship where they can come in, and it takes them through like a 4 or 5 step process where they schedule they create their life plan so they know exactly what they want, and then we take them through a process to build their business, and we're there with them like one on one. Because another thing with real estate is like, the concept is easy with wholesaling. Find a discounted property, give it to someone for sell it to someone for profit, right? But when you run into those certain situations like this squatter, like there's things that you need help with. So we're pretty hands on with the people we work with, the clients, to help them through certain situations. So that, in a nutshell, free Facebook group, learn as much as you want, no commitment, apprenticeship, you're committed. It's time to take action.
Yeah, it makes total sense. What would you say are some of the most common mistakes that real estate investors are making when they first get into the space?
I'd say the most common mistakes for wholesalers, like specifically, is like they think paying for leads marketing like is going to get them a deal. Like, so a lot of people will drop like 5,000, 10,000, $15,000 on marketing, get leads, and they won't be able to convert them because they're not skilled enough yet, and then they waste all their money. Another thing is they will get houses under contract that are not deals, and they'll waste their time, the seller's time, and just everybody's time. So those are the main issues, and that's what I try to combat. Is, look, I'm going to teach you how to get a deal with little to no marketing spend just in the beginning. So because I don't want people to make some giant investment into marketing that they might not be able to monetize because they don't have the skill sets yet. So those are the two. It's marketing spend, they get just destroyed by their marketing spend, and the other one is not knowing what a deal is.
Yeah, makes sense. So I know that, technology and market trends are, changing incredibly rapidly right now, probably more rapidly today than they ever have, in at least my lifetime. How can entrepreneurs and wholesalers and real estate investors, stay ahead and adapt their strategies effectively?
You know, that's a really good question of like where do you adapt to know what's working? My thought is like as long as you're out there taking action, like you'll be able to weather the storm of whatever happens. Like if you're out there, because action is I think is the most difficult thing to come by. Like people that are actually willing to do work. I think everybody's like can learn. I think people can like study and we're in the information, the knowledge, sorry, the age of wisdom, age of knowledge. So people like they think because they have all this knowledge, they're doing something, but it's not, you're not doing anything until you take action. So I would say like as long as you're willing to work, you'll be fine. Because you'll find out what works if you don't stop. That's my thought.
Yeah, it makes total sense, and obviously being consistent with that effort. What's the most important advice you'd give to a real estate investor, an entrepreneur, a busy professional that's grinding out the W-2, who feels stuck or is struggling with gaining traction in either their business or whatever their effort happens to be?
Well, I got a great answer for you because I've been studying this a lot recently. Is tracking, keeping track of what you actually do. Because I think a lot of us think we're doing way more than we really are, and that's me included. Like I'll be like, man, why don't I have more clients or why haven't I got more deals? Well, if I look at the numbers, it makes complete sense. I haven't done enough. So I think people that feel stuck in their W-2, they're like, man, I'm trying to build this business on the side. It's like, well, how many hours are you really dedicating like actual work to your business? Like maybe an hour or two a week if you really break it down, of prospecting or actually revenue generating activities. So that's something I've been learning a lot about, and it's like, well, yeah, 100%. Like if you're not tracking, you don't know, and you're going to feel stuck.
Right. And tracking, I suppose, comes down to kind of those measurable, KPIs in your life to keep you on track to, again, going back to your why and then deconstructing, what you need to do and how you need to balance your life accordingly in order to make sure that you're on track.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so for example, like I have measurables like outside of business. I have measurables like with my relationship with my wife, like my community, spiritually, mentally, health. Like, if you could say, oh, I feel really stuck with my marriage isn't that good. Well, you could actually come up with a measurable to be like, okay, am I spending enough quality time with my wife? When you look at it, you're like, oh, no wonder I feel stuck. I've spent like 1 hour of quality time, undivided attention with my wife, like a month. No wonder we feel like nothing's really happening or we're not going anywhere. That's just an example. And that's something I've struggled with too. I'm like, man, I see my wife all the time, but are we really connecting? And now I've kept track of like, okay, how much are we connecting? How much are we actually getting to like build a relationship? And it's like, oh, well, it's not as much as I thought. Let me work on that.
Yeah, it's so powerful, the words that you just spoke there, Nathan. What's up next for you? So as we kind of look to launch into 2025 and beyond, what are your maybe any personal, professional goals? Any bucket list items that you'd like to check off?
Well, I'm pretty dialed in, I would say, in like my goals and exactly what I want to accomplish. I would say this is interesting one, but thinking more. I want to think more. Like I'm always taking like going and doing stuff, like trying to read, trying to like comprehend more, but I want to like be able to be a little bit more still, like think, take time to slow down a little bit. That's my goal. Like can I get to a point in my life where I'm not so anxious that I need to be doing something, that I can actually just relax a little bit and think and sit in my sauna. I have a sauna in my new house I bought, which is crazy. I didn't know people did those that. But anyway, I have a sauna and I get anxious that if I just sit there too long. So I want to get a little bit more comfortable with being still.
Yeah, I wrote about this in my book that I recently published called The Fundamental Investor, and I dedicate half a chapter to this discussion about, having both a blessing and a curse. I've got undiagnosed, ADHD, and one of the greatest challenges that I have, one of the greatest weaknesses is I can't shut it off, right? And I envy people that can mentally, they have this switch they can turn off for an extended period of time or even a day, let alone an hour kind of a thing, right? I really personally struggle with that, and I think it's probably something that I need to continue to work on as I continue to grow our family and want to deepen relationships with people in my inner circle.
Exactly. What you just said, I agree with. Same here. Like it's so hard to unplug, and you feel like you're not doing something right when you unplug. But it's important, especially when with my kid. I just had a baby, so my wife is amazing at helping me be present because if I'm not, she's like, put that phone away, do this, that. And sometimes that, some people be like, oh, and she's nagging you. But my wife, is really just trying to help me be the best I can be and be present. So I agree.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And I'm sure your wife wants you to make as big of an impact as you can and create as large of a ripples as you can in your own family's life, as well as those that you serve around you. Nathan, this has been a pleasure. What would be maybe one or two different ways that our listening audience can learn more about you and connect with you offline?
Best place to go is Payneless Flipping, Wholesaling Real Estate Simplified. That's the Facebook group. Come talk with me in there. I'll welcome you once you join the group. I will, send you a welcome message. And if you don't want to chat yet, you don't want to join the group, I have a YouTube channel called, you just type in Nathan Payne. I get just thousands of videos on how to invest into real estate and how to improve. So those are the two ways.
That's great. Well, we'll go ahead and put those links in the show notes for this episode. Nathan, again, really appreciate the tremendous value that you brought us today.
Oh, appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. And listening audience, thank you again for jumping into another episode of The Freedom Point. We look forward to having you join us on the next episode.
Thank you for hanging out with us today and for listening to the Freedom Point podcast, powered by Starting Point Capital. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing said on this show should be considered financial advice. Before making any financial decision, please consult with a professional. This show is copyrighted by the Freedom Point podcast. Written permissions must be granted before syndication or rebroadcasting. If you're interested in connecting, you can find contact information at startingpointcapital.com.